go through our purchase contract with you in case we don't have a chance to go through it in person or together over the phone because of scheduling conflict. I want to make sure you understand every part of this contract. So, starting off, Section 1 says parties and property. These are the buyers, the sellers, the parcel ID, everything about the property, everything about the buyers and sellers. Section 2, purchase price. So you get the total purchase price, the amount of earnest money that's being put down, who's holding the earnest money, typically title company in our area. Section 3, settlement. That's the closing date. That's the day that you should be out, or the sellers should be out. The buyers can move in, sign the papers, get the keys. On or before, upon mutual agreement before this date. So that means this is the date we should plan on, but if everybody's ready early and everybody agrees to closing early, we could go before. If it's after, we need to do an amendment to the contract and everybody will have to agree to extend that contract. Section 4, what's included and excluded. So anything that's listed on the MLS is marketing. So if it says washer and dryer, fridge, that doesn't necessarily mean it's included. That needs to be put into the contract. That's just the marketing telling about the property. So everything listed here in the bullet points is included by default unless it's listed below as being excluded. So think of things like fixtures, things that are attached to the home, shelves, mirrors, lighting, closet, racking, things like that. Own propane tanks. But where we write in extra things that are included are washer, dryer, fridge, like bar fridge in the basement. Those extra things need to be added on, but we also have to be careful when there's a loan involved. We can't start putting too much personal property like pool table and swing set, because those things then the loan underwriters don't usually like to see that language in there. They think that's skewing the value of the home. Hot tub, think of. That needs to be done on a separate bill of sale. That's personal property, not real estate related. And if things are excluded, things like seller reserves the grand piano, so that would be excluded and not go with the sale. All right, moving on to Section 5, possession. Typically that's at settlement, at closing date, the buyers get the keys, take over. However, in some scenarios, the seller may need to continue to occupy the property and maybe they'll pay a daily rent for that. That has to be agreed on in the contract, and that's where we write it in if that's the case. Section 6 is about a home warranty. If a buyer is asking for a home warranty or if a seller is offering it, this is where we need to write that in. The name of the warranty company, the cost of that warranty, etc. Those details. Section 7, additional agreements. We like to avoid writing in additional agreements, but this would be an area where if there's a pre-inspection and a buyer wants to ask for certain repairs from that pre-inspection, this would be a good place for that to go. Section 8, addendums and riders. These are all the different addendums that are considered to be a part of this offer and then contract once it's signed by all parties. So think of things like the property disclosures, and then other things like if there's an as-is addendum included, inspection addendum, etc. If there's solar panels, there should be a solar panel disclosure. All those being checked mean those are included in this contract. 9 just says that the sellers haven't learned of new things that they need to disclose, and the buyers have reviewed what the sellers have disclosed. Section 10 just talks about earnest money and what happens with that earnest money. That earnest money gets held in most cases by a title company. It's put into a non-interest bearing account and then used as part of the down payment at closing for the buyers. So earnest money is really the buyers putting some skin into the game to show that they're serious, and if they just walk away, get cold feet and back out, they should lose that money. The caveat is no title company or anyone who holds earnest money is able to release earnest money to either party without a mutual agreement on how to release that money. Meaning, if the buyer just flakes but doesn't agree to give up the earnest money, I can't, as a seller's agent, just tell the title company, you need to give that money to the seller because the buyer just walked. Or if there's a disagreement on repairs, there has to be a mutual agreement on that. And if the buyer and seller can't come to a mutual agreement, then it really is up to a judge to decide how the title company releases that earnest money. So hope to avoid that situation. But just know, we can't just tell title company, our client deserves that earnest money. Section 11 is method of payment. Is it a cash sale? If so, is there going to be an appraisal on the property? Is it financing? If so, what type of financing? How much of a down payment? Interest rate not to exceed X amount. So get under contract, but interest rate not to exceed 7%. And now all of a sudden the interest rate skyrockets to 8%. Well, the buyer doesn't have to move forward with that contract because according to the terms of this contract, it would not exceed 7% in that scenario. Then it explains the loan application process, when buyers should get conditional approval. If there's a loan denial for any reason, like some of the buyer's financial circumstances changed, then this talks about how the buyer can provide that written notice to declare the contract null and void. And then there's a section here about if it's an FHA loan, if it's a VA loan. Make sure to read through that if those sections apply, because there are some things in there like, well, for one, if the house doesn't appraise for enough, then the buyer isn't obligated to buy because they're not going to get the loan. Section 12 is about seller concessions. So if the seller is offering like a carpet allowance, or the buyer has to ask for a financing concession to get the loan, that's where this would go. As well as if the buyer needs to ask for a concession from the seller to help pay for their buyer broker fee, that's where they would go as well. Section 13 says seller shall provide a title insurance policy and a warranty deed at closing. 14 talks about the seller and buyer's responsibility in terms of closing costs. And 15 talks about prorations, like property tax prorations, propane tank proration, if there's a propane tank there. 16 talks about condition of property and final walkthrough. So sellers, please read this. The house should be left in broom clean condition. Property should be free of debris, personal belongings, and trash. Floors swept or vacuumed, surfaces wiped down, leaving it in a basic, tidy state ready for the next occupant. This always gets missed. Sellers leave behind a bunch of stuff or don't clean up, and that just provides a huge problem right before closing. So if you plan on having all your personal property out, that's great. Clean it. You need to have that plan. Otherwise, we're going to have problems at the end. The buyer will do a final walkthrough, usually the day before closing, to make sure nothing major has changed with the house since it went under contract. 17 says that if there's like a fire or tornado or something that damages the property, the buyers can back out and get their earnest money back, or use the seller's insurance proceeds to make any repairs. 18 says that digital signatures are fine, how the contract can be delivered. 19 is important. Once this is signed by both parties, this is an enforceable contract. Buyer's got to buy, seller's got to sell. No takesies, backsies. 20, sellers make no representation, warranties, or guarantees about the property after closing. For instance, they have no idea how long that water heater is going to last. If it fails a week after closing, they couldn't predict that. They don't have a crystal ball. 21 says who the buyer's agent is, who the seller's agent is, if the agent is related to the seller or buyer, that's disclosed here. 22 has a bunch of boilerplate legal stuff, like X is the same as a check mark, weekends and holidays don't constitute business days, things like that. 23 acknowledges that the legal descriptions provided may be abbreviated, and the longer version is what will be in the title work. 24 is buyers and sellers agreeing to disseminate this information in our multiple listing service to be used for appraisals, comparisons, etc. And then we have a deadline for when this offer should be accepted before it becomes null and void. Buyers and sellers have places to sign, to agree. There's a place for sellers to reject it, to make a counteroffer, or just reject it totally. So that is our purchase contract. If there's an as-is addendum, Section A talks about personal property. Does it stay? Does it go? Is it not applicable because the house is empty? Or does it stay or go depending on the seller's discretion? This is because before it was unclear. As is really meant as is. It should be left the way, or the buyer should take it the way it was when they got it under contract. But what about all the stuff? Now it's more clear. Does it stay? Does it go? And then Section B, is it as is without inspections? No inspections, just as is. Or is it as is with the option for inspections but without the option for repairs? And if so, what inspections is the buyer going to do? However, the buyer may not ask for any repairs after those inspections. It's only to make sure that they don't want to back out because there's something major that they didn't know about. There's a deadline in there of when all of those inspections need to be done and when the written notice needs to be provided. If you don't use the As Is Addendum, we should be using the Residential Inspection Addendum, which Section A says what inspections the buyer intends to do. The buyer pays for all those inspections. What's a date by when they intend to have all those inspections done and serve written notice of any repairs. We only provide a copy of the inspection report or the specific pages if the seller requests. Let's see. The seller will continue to market the property as active under contract until we're through all those inspections. So just know that it could continue to be shown, and they could accept a backup contract to a buyer's contract. So that could happen. Section B talks about termite inspections as who's paying for them, when they'll be done. Oh, one thing I want to go back on Section A is buyers should not be present during all of the inspections. They can only go to the home inspection and specifically to the wrap-up of that home inspection. The inspector doesn't want the buyer there the entire time, neither does the seller, so they can only plan to go during that wrap-up of the home inspection. If they have any questions, they can ask them there, or if they can't go at all, that's a good opportunity to call the inspector and get some information. The sellers shouldn't be present during that, but sometimes they need to be, and the buyer or seller agent may be present. C talks about a septic inspection if they're getting done, who's going to pay to pump the tank if that is needed, radon test if that's being done, what the criteria is for pass-fail there. E talks about what are qualified defects. There's several examples in here of things that are not qualified defects. Scratch and dent, wear and tear, routine maintenance, current code. Age is not considered a defect. We get this all the time where an inspector will say a water heater is aged beyond its anticipated life. You should anticipate replacing it. It's not defective unless it's defective. Just because it's old doesn't mean it's defective. You can't ask for something old to be replaced just because it's old. It needs to be defective. So then Section F talks about the repair addendum process after buyers have asked for repairs, when sellers should provide notice to the buyers on what their intent is. So all the rest of this just kind of outlines how all of that happens. This is just a quick run through of our contract in case we couldn't talk about this in person or over the phone. But please don't hesitate to ask specific details, specific questions you may have. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk through this together anyways. Thanks.